This conference will now be recorded.
There appears to be a headphone jack that was.
Can we be heard now?
Should that be plugged into the headphone port at the front?
People online, can you hear us? Yes, yes, they can.
Okay, they can hear it now. Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thank you all for your patience.
Okay. Thank you for that. Sorry to interrupt you on your vacation. Now I know main thing to plug in and off is, and that's much easier than shutting everything down. Yep. Yep. All right. Get back to enjoying your vacation. Thank you for taking our call. Bye.
So we should probably restart the meeting. We should
Well, maybe just the public hearing.
Yeah.
just a
Okay.
public. Well, I'd like to give people who online who might have been wanting to comment on the discussion items later in the agenda, the traffic, the derelict buildings, the short-term rentals, planning clearances, a chance to speak for 3 minutes. Is there anyone online that would like to speak to those topics? Because we passed over that, but you all weren't able to hear us. I can't.
Yeah. It looks like no one wants to talk.
So it looks like no one wants to. Yes, sir. The agenda of today, correct? The- No,
Not the hearing.
that's a hearing. So that'll be a chance for that later. I'm speaking about the discussion items, the traffic, the derelict building, short-term rentals, uh, planning clearances. Okay, well, let's go ahead. So I'm going to just back up just a little bit and run through the way we're going to run the public hearing. We're at the public hearing part of the meeting now for those who are online. As I said before, we can't change the law as part of this hearing. We're required to base our decisions on the law that exists when the application was filed. I have asked if any of the members of the commission have any potential conflicts, such as family, financial, or business relationship with any of the applicants. Commissioner Commissioner Head said that she does know personally one of the representatives of the company in a personal way. So citizens may provide verbal testimony online or here at the meeting. And when we get to that part, may speak for or against or anything about the hearing, about the conditional use in the hearing. If we decide that we can decide that the record can stay open for another meeting if there's something unresolved or needs to be brought to us, or if we need to gather new information, it could be held over for another month. The procedures will be the staff report will be the first thing. Then the proponents or the applicant will testify first, and all those in favor of the application will testify. Then opponents will testify second, and the commission can ask whoever is speaking questions. If any new information is presented, evidence, everyone gets a chance to respond to the new information. The proponent or the applicant will speak last. They can make a closing statement without introducing new evidence. Then I will close the hearing, and then the commission here will deliberate and will decide what the outcome will be. And as I said, we may carry it on to another meeting. So I think I'll wait till Joseph gets back. But that's the form that we go through. Did I do that okay? Okay. Well, here's Joseph. We're moving along.
I don't know if we are or not.
Theoretically, we're moving forward.
I think his is the same. So that'll be my first question.
Okay.
When you're ready for me,
Okay, so
I'll raise more questions.
the staff report will be first. So Crystal Shoji, our planner, will go ahead and give the,
So I need to apologize because I just got we were having a lot of trouble with this whole meeting because the attachments were so huge. We had to put them in the Dropbox and everything, which usually works fine. And now I see several things that apparently didn't work. So first, I want to make sure that everybody has the full staff report. It should be 21 pages, and this is for the T-Mobile application.
I have 21.
I don't think you do, though, because she made it from your copy.
there were a bunch of blank pages in the one I got.
So you need a,
I don't have that. You know what?
also sometimes the printer doesn't work.
Apparently.
Do you have one with more pages?
Well, I just got it now.
Okay.
Yeah, 21 pages
feels
Okay.
is what's in the staff report.
Well,
I have
Okay.
a lot of blank.
go ahead and why don't you go ahead and give your report and we can follow along and then maybe make notes on what is there? Or,
Okay. I don't know. Joseph could make,
I can print off copies real quick if the commissioners
I
want.
think
copies.
that,
Where was the staff report included?
This,
I d-
oh,
in the documents I printed off now that I'm thinking about it, it may not have been in the ones that I printed off this morning.
Okay.
Online, it was decision TBD is its
Yeah.
own link, and that links to the staff report.
we'll need
Oh.
from page 8 on.
Okay, I'll just share with Sarah.
Page
Okay.
9.
Page 9 on-
Page 9 through,
Commissioner Burnt, do you also need a copy?
I don't think you don't have a copy of the
Okay,
staff
I'll go
report.
just print off 2 fresh copies. Sorry about that.
and while he's doing that, we have some regular business that we have to do for this particular application anyway. So first, I noticed that for some reason, the attachments, which took me hours to organize, aren't labeled in the stuff that was printed off.
Hmm.
And sometimes that happens with technology. I don't know why. But so I would like you to label them because I don't know how you're going to find things to make your decision. So the first attachment is attachment A, and it looks like this. It has an X on it.
Hmm.
Attachment A.
Oh. that's in the,
Okay.
The second attachment has a number of pages, and they were all numbered on something. But it is Network Connex, and that is attachment B. That is,
it's the next page for me.
it is the next page, and it goes 19 pages.
It has all the exhibits.
Does it include the land use decision application form?
Just count 19 pages from attachment B, and you should be at the right place. And when you all get there, I will give you attachment C.
Is that this? Back page?
Yeah, the back page is
Is this?
Oh, here it is.
it's a map. It's a black and white map. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then attachment C is what we're going to be talking about mostly. It's the Black Mountain Consulting Report.
This one.
Yeah, that's the end of the.
And attachment C has
Uh,
16 pages. Before you get to Exhibit D1.
Black Mountain Consulting. That one I did not see.
This Black Mountain Consulting report is Exhibit C.
attachments. Yeah,
Is it-
Exhibit C.
Okay.
I might not have that.
So I go here, and then I go here. I
That
see
shouldn't be.
D.
Yeah, D1, but where's C?
This
Yeah.
I don't have.
That is so weird, but we can share that.
Okay.
Okay. Then we have attachment D1.
Yeah.
And that goes for $20, 28, 29, 30 pages. And then you have attachment D2
Wait,
or exhibit D2.
what is the beginning of Exhibit D?
D1 starts with Sarah.
Oh, it's the impact 7. Okay. D1.
I don't have C, but
That goes for 30 pages. And then you have D2.
D2, yeah, all the pictures. Some of them are double-sided.
Okay.
too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And D2 is not numbered. It's just a bunch of pictures.
Okay.
And then you have exhibit E, which is the notice that went to adjacent properties. Exhibit E has 2 pages. And then you don't have exhibits F and G. I don't think you'll need them, but if you want to see them, we have a couple copies here at the meeting. They're not being withheld. They just are extremely long and not pertinent to this application. But they are important to the cell tower company. They're structural.
Is the utility service confirmation form?
Those, when you get to the end then of the packet, after you have exhibits F and G, you have 2 other exhibits. And that's what we have to take in right here at the meeting.
Mhm.
These came in after the staff report was written and put together. So we have exhibit I, which is the utility confirmation form from the Port Orford Rural Fire Protection District.
Oh.
And then you have exhibit H, which is the confirmation form from Coos Curry Electric. So I'm going to start with the staff report. This is not a big application, but it's a little bit complicated because it's in a natural hazard zone. And so a number of extra reports and things had to be done because of that, because they're building in the hazard zone. And it's a tower, as you all know where the tower is. And then there's a compound around the bottom that has the generator and equipment. So the other thing is that this is kind of intertangled with Titchener Cemetery, which is a historic cemetery on the National Register. And so we had to have the applicants had to have special reports done for the archaeology, and I think it's called Section 106 reports that are federal reports about the cemetery and how it was interacting with the project. So a lot of paperwork. That archaeological report is interesting, though. It talks about the history of the area and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the staff report, wherever that's gone. Right here. So the first page of the staff report basically talks about what the proposal is, and the proposal is for a generator, a new generator, and a new fence around the compound. And the compound is in a lease area, and that's what's marked with the X on Exhibit A, or yeah, Exhibit A. And so, cell towers don't have to come through local government anymore for the number of carriers. And they're not proposing any more carriers, but I'm just telling you that because the reason this is before you is because there's a change in the structures at the base. So this cell tower is owned by Crown Castle in Pennsylvania. And there's a lot of people working on these cell towers. And so we have been working with Network Connex, which was formerly Synergy, and that's who the reports have been coming from. So on page 2 of the report, write down about the third thing on the report, talks about the zoning. And this is in a residential zone within the city of Port Orford, and it's also in the natural hazards zone. Also talks about Titchener Cemetery, there being intertwined. And it describes under the proposal the generator and the site footprint and things like that. The applicants say there is no plan for excavation and that they're not going to go outside the current site any more than 30 feet. So the criteria and findings start on page 3, and this is where we take our code and match the code up with what's happening to see if things are appropriate or if there's concerns that we have to address. So on page 3, there's a lot of definitions, and they probably aren't something you need to fully understand if you trust why we did it. The reason we have all these definitions in here is because when we start talking about buildings and structures and development, we need to know what we're dealing with. And so we kind of had to follow the thread as we were going through it to find out what this was. And as we went through it, the final decision is that the structure is defined and applied within this staff report, and this is a structure that's going in. And it took us a while to get to that, but and the use is intended for that. So also we had the hazard report has to be by a geologist that is a certified engineering geologist licensed by the state of Oregon, and that is who did the report. So we go into the residential zone, and it talks about provision of sewer and water, and the applicants have stated they don't plan to be using any. I did notify them that if they need water for fire suppression or something up there, they do need to notify the city and take care of whatever they have to do. And fire suppression may be something that you want to address anyway at this time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So this tract that has the lease area on it for T-Mobile, it's my understanding it's over 900 acres, but we're dealing with this one tax lot that's part of a whole tract, which is tax lot 100, about 25 acres. And then it's got this lease area and a residential dwelling and stuff, I believe, on tax lot 300. So moving on, this section, page 6 through 9 is quoting our natural hazard overlay zone. It's technical, but our zone states that if a geologist certifies that there will be no possibility of any problems caused by something, they can certify it and they don't have to do the rest of the report because they are then taking liability for anything that happens. Geologists don't usually do that, and I can see why. But this particular report, they did a very good job, as far as I could tell, of defining where they thought there was areas of concern. And so soon we will get into the report. We're not going to go through all of this language, but you have it if you need it. So you get to page 11. Well, no, let's go to page 10. So most of the meat of this is in this Black Mountain report, which is Exhibit C.
Okay.
And the
I'm done.
geologist has described on page 10 that well logs in the vicinity of the site indicate that water levels may vary near the surface to tens of feet below surface. And that subsurface materials are described as likely to include superficial sand, I don't know if I'm saying it right, superficial sand, underlain at shallow depths by sandstone. And then B, the assessment describes the property and adjacent properties and addresses seismic hazards within the vicinity. The assessment describes liquefaction and how it would apply. The assessment describes fault hazard, north-northwest trending strike slip fault associated with the Battle Rock Fault Zone that is mapped approximately 100 meters east of the site. The assessment describes steep slope and landside hazard areas that are considered to be any ground that rises at an inclination of 40% or more. And there's more to that. And that steep slopes, of course, are associated with historic landslides, excavation activity, soil erosion, etc. And then they say that they didn't discover evidence of certain kinds of things, but that they did not observe evidence of rapid soil movement at the site. Then on F, they talk about the flooding and erosion hazard that is described in the Natural Resource Soil Survey. And G, they say that the site doesn't require grading, and that because previous language in the report states that the compound area has been graded level. I did have a couple questions about that, so you will find that I did address grading because I don't know how you can move things around and not do some grading.
Mm-hmm.
So that's addressed later in the report. So on page 11, the first thing is just the city doesn't have a geologist on staff. And in this case, for the recommendation, we did not hire local engineers to oversee this. Number one, we thought that the report from Black Mountain was very descriptive and more thorough than we have usually gotten. And we thought that we should go back to them to do the checking of on-site activity while it's happening. So you will find in here later on that we go back to the recommendations that come right out of the report that we have repeated on page 11 about slope setbacks, erosion control, ground cover on slopes, and grading. So we will come to that a little bit later because we want to comply with their recommendations of the geologists. Then at the bottom of page 11, we address the historic preservation topic. And on page 12, we have some parts of the report, and we also have parts of the comprehensive plan goals and policies. And so you will note there on the second half of page 12 that we do have a city policy towards the bottom that talks about maintaining Titchener Cemetery as a historic cemetery listed in the Oregon State Registry. And one of our goals is to honor that. On page 13, we have supplementary provisions. These are archaeological provisions. They basically state that if you're up there moving ground and it's called development activity in our code, and you encounter artifacts, they could be tribal artifacts or remains from the cemetery that have shifted or something, or any remains, whether they're from the cemetery or just lying around. Then there's a process the city has to go through, and we have to notify the state. And so we will be addressing that in our conditions. At the bottom of page 13, we go into the regulations for authorizing or granting or denying a conditional use. And on page 14, we talk about some of those. In the middle of the page, we have a finding about the notice that we did provide the notice to the neighbors. We have additional standards for conditional uses on page 14 on the second half of the page. As a planning commission, you do have the right to address certain things, whether they're in the code or not, as part of a conditional use. So the setbacks, that issue doesn't apply to the heights or anything because they're not doing anything to haul. At the bottom of page 14, there's a limitation on access to buildings and noise and things like that. And we don't think that will apply. And then on page 15, number 3, the city can require assurances to guarantee development in accordance with the standards and conditions imposed in granting a conditional use. So the Planning Commission will look at those things. There's certain rules for a communications transmitter. It's on the middle of page 15. It's labeled as D. All equipment storage on the site, it's a D1, shall be within an enclosed building. And that's where we had to go through the whole activity of defining whether that was a building. And because it had vents and an enclosure for equipment and stuff, it would be considered a building. So the building and structure definitions work together to provide clarity. So page 16, number 2 at the top, the code gives you the right to, they're going to have it fenced, but you do have the right to request landscaping, and you would have the right to comment on any trees that are coming down or specify concerns about that for the geologist to oversee at your, if you guys think that's the thing to do. On page 16 also, we have other things that aren't really applicable, but as you get to the bottom, you have some city goals out of our comprehensive plan about resolving conflicts between incompatible development activities and identified natural, scenic, and historic resources. And there's some language out of the code. And you probably won't like what I'm saying, but in my opinion, even though my professional opinion, even though our comprehensive plan suggests that we should be maintaining scenic viewpoints, etc., and making sure that we don't obstruct them without a lot of clarification of what those are or which ones, it really wouldn't hold up anywhere because we don't have specificity.
Commissioner Head, are you saying the comprehensive plan is too vague in that regard?
Can we just wait for
Oh,
the
sorry.
questions?
Okay.
Let's finish
Okay,
the
then
staff
hold
report,
it then,
please.
and
Yeah.
okay. So we can talk about it. Okay, then there's a time limit on a conditional use, and it's always that way. Then there's a couple other things in here. Page 17, second half, talking about erosion prevention and sediment control. And these are usually handled at the time of planning clearance for building permits. That really isn't appropriate here because T-Mobile is going to be required to send people with special knowledge down here to prevent such things in the hazard zone. So what's appropriate is for them to address erosion prevention and sediment control in a plan at the time that they come and oversee the site activity, so that that's taken care of, so that it's not like, oh, surprise, now you've got your conditional use, but next you have to do your erosion control. They should be resolving all that with the city planning director / administrator at the time that they are down here. So hopefully they would bring a report that they've done on their own of how they want to have that on the site from the maps and things, and then work with John to make sure that they oversee that at the site so that they are in agreement with what happens there at the site. So page 18, they have more things that they have suggested. Black Mountain in the middle of the page about maintaining a safe distance of 20 feet from slope faces that exceed 40%. They talk about drainage and erosion control measures. Ground cover, best management practices, disturbed areas being reseeded as soon as possible. And then I added that any grading should be considered at the time that they're here. So the Black Mountain Consulting combined with the city's erosion prevention and sediment management are applicable at the site at the time of activity. The same goes for storm and surface water management, which is on page 19, because it's all related. When you're talking about steep slopes and you're talking about grading and you're talking about seeding, you're also talking about surface water management. So then we come to the considerations for the Planning Commission. And these are generalized at first. The Planning Commission is encouraged to consider all the requirements and findings. And number 2, the Planning Commission is to consider whether there's additional things that should be added. Number 3, the expectation is that the Planning Commission will make their decision based upon compliance with the criteria that's set out in the city's codes and in this report. And then the final thing, at the top of page 20, that the findings and conditions within this staff report can be appropriate to justify approval as long as there are certain conditions. So on page 20, you have a number of conditions, and let's go through those. Number 1, the geological assessment exhibit C includes recommendations and mitigation measures on page 7 of their assessment. The following recommendations are suggested as conditions of approval. Structures and equipment should maintain a minimum distance of 20 feet from the face of slopes that exceed 40%. So you saw that previously in the report. B, drainage and erosion control measures be provided during construction that no water be discharged over the slopes to the east and south of the development area. This is all right from their report. This is not something Joseph and I would be able to suggest. C, ground cover on slopes should be protected during construction, and excavated material should not be side cast on slopes. Best management practices for erosion control should be utilized during construction, including covering stockpiles and preventing water from discharging on slopes. D, disturbed areas should be reseeded as soon as possible after construction and monitored to minimize potential erosion hazard for underlying soils as identified by the Natural Resources Conservation Service Soil Survey of Curry County. Any grading, stockpiling, or other development work that takes place shall be organized to control site plan erosion and sediment per our code. Number 2, site plan and oversight shall be accomplished by involving Black Mountain geologists at the time of site work. Black Mountain geologists will schedule to provide a development and site management plan to the City of Port Orford, working with the Port Orford City Administrator Planning Director and City Public Works Director. Number 3, I believe that I added this because I saw that Joseph or I saw that they were talking about removing a tree or two or something. Any tree removal at the site should be overseen and approved on the management plan by Black Mountain geologists at the time of site work. 4, the recommendations of the 106 notification for monitoring by the applicant's archaeologist, Lower Columbia Research and Archaeology, are incorporated as conditions of approval for this application. Archaeological provisions will be observed by the city if there are archaeological artifacts discovered at the time of ground disturbance. The archaeologist is to schedule with the applicants and the City of Port Orford, City Administrator, Planning Director, and Public Works Director to be on site and provide
A report.
a report to the city of any findings and concerns for their observations at the site during development activity. Number 6, the applicant shall comply with section 1716.060 for any archaeological discoveries that are made when development activity is taking place on subject property. Number 7, it is appropriate for the Planning Commission to consider SHPO, that's the State Historic Preservation Organization, comments, and any comments from the city's Historic Preservation Commission or local preservation organizations to assist in determining any specific landscaping that is needed. Number 8, staff recommends that the applicant provide a signed acknowledgement of the time limit on a permit for conditional use so that if this takes more time, it's not a surprise to them and they have signed off on it so that they approach us before the permit's over, which is always a bad scene because then the whole thing starts again. So
This is actually your copy.
thank you. There's my final page that fell down or something. Anyway, so Joseph worked with me on this, and then I worked with him on his permit. So are there any questions before you go into deliberation on this? Well, there is, because we have to take public comments.
The public comment will
And
be.
also the
Applicant.
applicants.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So that completes your report?
That does complete my report, I believe.
Thank you. Does the applicant Is the applicant here to testify?
I think they might be online.
Is the applicant online?
I see them online. They just need to give some acknowledgement that they're here. Oh, Becky Todd says that she is the applicant. You are good to turn on your mic, Miss Todd, and we should be able to hear you. Great. She says her mic is on. We cannot hear you. Give me 1 second. Try again. Not yet. Sorry about all the technical issues. We are trying our best to get them resolved. Well, we can hear someone. Try again, Miss Todd. Hmm. Nope, not yet, Miss Todd.
Joseph, while we're waiting, my apologies for being late. I had a doggy emergency before I came, so thank you.
Welcome.
Try again, Miss Todd. I just turned up a different volume thing. Nope. We might need to call Eric again.
Yeah, can she call in?
Hmm?
Can she call in?
Calling in, we would be able to hear, yes. I would hope.
Yes, the number he called him once before.
Yes. Chat. She is still unmuted, so if she tries to speak, we should be able to hear her.
For those in the room, this is our new video system, and it seems to have some bugs.
Oh,
It's very frustrating, I realize, and I apologize on behalf of the city.
Is it new for this meeting?
This is the first meeting we've had with this system.
or at least it's the first one where we've had people try to call in.
Nobody called in last.
Mm-mm.
Maybe before you do your next meeting.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I think we just.
Does that work?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Yay! Okay. I'm on my phone, so hopefully it doesn't hang up. And I'm a little scared. I'm going to mute my computer. I'm a little scared to hang up on that just in case the whole thing goes. Can you hear me still?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have the ability to screen share, or is that a bridge too far here?
So if you activate your camera, and you should be able to activate screen sharing on your side, and then I can switch to that camera.
Okay. Give me just a second. All right, screen share on. Okay, so my camera is on, but the little screen share thingy is blocked.
She can manage that.
1 second.
Okay.
Oh, all right. See if you can share now. And if
Nope, I'm
not,
still blocked.
okay. In that case, I have it pulled up, and we can just go
Okay,
off
perfect.
that. Just let me know when you
Perfect.
want
We will do that.
to move.
All right. Thank you very much. So I am here. I work for Network Connects. We're here representing T-Mobile to add an emergency backup generator to their Port Orford site. The project itself is we're proposing to install a new 48 kilowatt generator, the Generac diesel model, 240 gallon tank on a proposed 4x9 concrete pad. And the pad, it's about the same size as the generator, it's just for a foundation. And it would fit between the a new fence compound that's on the north side, built into the existing lease area. And it's L-shaped, so it's like 14 by 10 by 7 by 4 by whatever's left over, 7, I think, but 10 by 14 at its widest dimension. And the furthest away that we're building from our existing compound is 14 feet. As you've seen from the maps in the staff report, the location is at the top of Boot Hill Road, Titcher Cemetery Road. There's a house there, an accessory building, and the property or the property under common ownership contains actually 3 different towers. The location on the parcel where we're building, there's a broad hill, it's grasses and trees, and you can see from the slide that's pulled up, I dropped the pin right on the tower because it's the easiest thing in the compound to see. The ground equipment is actually slightly to the south of that, and it's under there's a lot of vegetation over it, so you can't really see it from Google Earth or any of the aerial parcel maps. There is a site plan of it right next to it, and the construction would be within the area that is to the, as you're looking at this, to the right-hand side of the road, or the east of the road, in an existing graveled area that's, again, right up against the fence compound. And it is meets the underlying setback requirements for the zone. And the whole purpose of this is then the backup generator improves the network resiliency and will help keep the site on air in the event that there's power loss, which can be, man-made, natural, what have you, emergency. The model of generator that we selected, worst case scenario would be 52 hours of emergency backup power, and that's when the generator is running at 100%. It'll go up to 96 when it's carrying a lower load, and the load that it needs to carry would just fluctuate by how much power is being drawn in a particular circumstance. But at a minimum, it would be 52 hours. So if you can go to the next slide. Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah, you're on the correct one. So the one with the blue tarp. That flat area is where we're proposing to build. It's already been extensively graded and gravelled and compacted. And the blue tarp is put on the ground kind of about where the generator is being proposed. You can see there's 2 fence compounds. The one to the right is the fence compound where T-Mobile is installed right now. And the proposal would just be a continuation of that same exterior looking wood fence. And the tower is in the compound that's to the left. And I felt it wasn't totally clear from the staff report because there's a couple of spots where it refers to expansions with the tower in there. And we're not doing anything at all with the tower. There's no visual change, no tower work at all. This is purely a generator project for backup power. And so we would be fencing in around where that is right now. And let's see. So oh, can you hear me still?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay, my phone just did something really weird. I'm sorry. So what we briefed in our submission to the Planning Commission that was not super covered in the staff report, and I think it's because it has to do with federal law and not the local regulations that everybody would be familiar with, is this is actually qualified as a 6409 eligible facilities request. And the 2012 Spectrum Act created a provision under federal law where certain types of wireless site modifications are automatically approved, and local zoning rules as far as the project itself are preempted. The language of the statute says that local governments may not deny and shall approve any eligible facilities request for modification of an existing wireless tower or base station, and that's what the generator falls under. It's a base station that does not substantially change the physical dimensions of such tower or base stations. And the point of this law was to speed up co-locations and also speed up site modifications that improve network resiliency and service. And the FCC has specifically said that this applies to permanent and backup power. The eligible facility request, it does provide limitations on what a carrier can and cannot do at a facility, and a lot of the bulk of it has to do with height and width of tower work, of additional antennas and whatnot, which is not at all what we're doing here. Again, this is just a ground work request, and the current rule is that for each modification, you can add up to 4 cabinets and expand the compound no more than 30 feet in any direction from the site boundary. Which, if you go back to slide number 4, that gives you a better idea of the shape of the compound. So at the bottom here, where that's closest to the purple label, you can see there's details in there that are grayed out. That's the existing facility. And then you can see our fence line above that. It measures out 14 feet to kind of the off northerly direction, and then 10 feet easterly, and then 7 down, 4 across, and 7 down again. So this is well within the limits of the 30 feet that the FCC allows and is permissible under federal law for specifically this type of project. Going back to, sorry about the bounce back and forth. Going back to slide number 7. Again, I wanted to reiterate that our project doesn't include any tower work, and there's no additional cabinets proposed. It is purely just the generator. And I'd also like to say that the site, if you are looking from the distance from the public right-of-way, it's at least 120 feet from the end of the public right-of-way to where the site is. And there had been a lot of concern expressed about the cemetery that's there. So if you go to slide 3, you can see where our pin is. Our adding of the generator is 14 foot area to the south of that. And if you go north from our pin, you'll pass over the other facility. And if you go slightly to the northwest, there's a little box that's out there, and it's across a big grass field, and it's kind of down the hill, I think, a little bit. And so our project isn't really, it's not very close to the cemetery, all things considered, and is not really in a spot that would make an impact on the cemetery itself. And we would be not cutting in any existing roads or taking away from any access roads. And I'm not even positive if this is the legal access to the cemetery or not. But we would not be, impeding, if this is indeed how people get there, the project would not be impeding that. And I think in summary, there are a couple comments I wanted to make about the staff report. And we did have the geologist report and did have the recommendations in there. And in a nutshell, it's essentially we hired the geologist to do an erosion plan for us, make recommendations as to what management practices would be, and then they would be on site to observe. And that's actually a fairly normal thing for when you're doing excavation. It doesn't usually apply to a project this small, but it can. And then the same thing for the cultural resources observer. From the way I'm reading the conditions and the way I understand the staff report and the intent of it, is that we would have a cultural observer on site to make sure that in the event that anything turns up while there's, putting the utility connections or any of the fence posts, that appropriate measures would be taken. But again, if you look at slide number 5 and the condition of the site in general, it's probably fairly low risk, probably extremely low risk, since the whole area has been graded in the past. And I think I'm probably hitting up against my end of time. I had one more slide, and that is just a general slide number 8. And there's a data point on there on public safety, a couple data points on public safety. And this is the purpose of the generator, is to keep the site on air so that, in the event of an emergency, it is still accessible and it still can connect people in the area that need it. And I guess with that, I will see if there are any questions, but give me a second because I can only hear myself talking. I can't hear anybody else. But I will cede what time is left.
Do any commissioners have questions?
Yes, Commissioner Byrne. I just want to clarify, is there just one tower up on Boot Hill?
I believe there are at least one.
Can you hear me?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's actually 3 of them up there, and at least according to Google Earth and according to there's multiple towers according to our geology firm that went out and observed. We are only T-Mobile is only on one of them. The other 2 are kind of off to the north.
There will be no
and we have nothing
towers.
we have
They're
nothing
just
to do with those at all.
generator on a pad.
Right.
Commissioner Lovendall.
Thank you for speaking to us. I wonder, do you have a fire suppression plan during construction, i.e. bringing a water tank up there to have it on hand?
Not that I'm aware of. I can ask our construction folks about that. The site does have typically fire extinguishers and whatnot. This would be, I think, a fairly low risk for fire, given what it is. We're just doing groundwork.
Commissioner Head. Yeah, my concern would be more with fire concern with the generator running during the summer, during fire restrictions, what the fire mitigation plan would be for the site.
Yeah, so it's not it's not designed to run full time. It is only designed to trip on when there's a certain level of power outage. So it's not just going to be on all the time. It does get tested for about 15 minutes at a time. The tank, I believe, does have some safety features built into it.
Okay, yeah, I understand that it's not going to be running continuously. I guess I would just like to see a more solid plan for fire remediation, or, can the generator be running during restricted hours in the summer?
I think this is an emergency generator in
It's an
case
emergency,
of catastrophic emergency.
Right, I understand that.
Thing.
But if, I just putting it out there that I have a concern that it could also cause another emergency, and I was just wondering.
So I guess the question then from my point of view would be, is this generator recognized by the federal organizations and safety organizations to be fire suppressant?
It is a Generac standard commercial generator. I can pull up if you give me a second, I can probably find the spec for it. I had this stuff open just a second ago. But it is natural NESC certified and all that sort of stuff. It is a standard commercial Generac off-the-shelf model.
If it's
Yeah, sorry,
NFPA,
I was not prepared to pull up the spec.
NFP certified, you said?
NFPA, National Fire Protection Association.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Commissioner Byrne.
Are you still looking up something?
Oh, sorry.
You know, I can email it to you. I'm not sure. So this, oh, you know what? I think it's in the site plans. Hold on. It is a Generac, and it has a built-in spill kit. And sorry, hang on just a second. Okay. Yeah, it is NFPA certified.
Thank you. Commissioner Berndt?
Yes, thank you. Do you have plans to contact, and is that your responsibility to contact tribal members and archaeological entities to be on site?
So that, I believe that was part of the notice portion of that goes into the NEPA SHPO process. And that was the recommendation that came back, was to have an archaeological observer on site per the company that prepared the report, and don't remember their name offhand. But yeah, it was one of the conditions that we have an observer.
And I think we have that in the recommendations.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Commissioner Lovendall.
Commissioner Lovendall, yes. I would like to know if you have any, I didn't see any, you're using the established access. There's no temporary driveways or accesses involved in the construction of this project?
No, we wouldn't need it. It's a smaller project that the existing site access is large enough.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Commissioner Lawton,
Lawton, thank you.
this generator has a 240-gallon underbelly tank to it. I didn't see anything that protected the area around it should there be a leak in the tank. Is there anything?
There is. They come standard with a spill prevention box, and it's on. I don't know if you have the full copy of the site plans. We pulled a couple of the more relevant pages out of the generator specs, and it should be on sheet D1. There's a generator detail. I don't know if you guys got the full plans because of the Dropbox thing.
I think, well, I have it here. So is that part of the structural assessment or part of the?
No, the structural assessment would be for the foundation that it's going to attach to, because I mean, you don't just set this on the dirt; it's on a concrete pad. It's I believe like a 9x4 concrete pad, and so that's what the structural would apply to. This is a prefabricated object that we're putting on site, and so it would have the spill prevention built in already.
It would be part of the generator itself. If it was NFPA approved, it would be the generator and the tank. It's like a skid.
So that would be a double-walled tank?
It's already a double-walled tank, yeah.
Okay.
We do have all of your paperwork here if the Planning Commission wants to look, but you would have to tell us which one you want, whether you want the structural calculations or the engineering plans.
I think it would be in the installation drawings.
Yeah, they are, let's see, there's a sheet D1 and a D2 and a D3. Oh, goes all the way up, D3, yeah, that provide the generator, and then the detail for there's a fire extinguisher cabinet that goes with the final build, and that's on D4. Someone had asked about that, and I just found it.
D1, D2, and D3.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Are there other proponents of this conditional use permit that would like to speak online or in the room? If not, are there opponents of the conditional use permit that would like to speak online or in the room? Are there any more questions of our presenter? Then I'm going to close this portion of the hearing and then we will deliberate. Is that the way we do it? Okay, so I'm going to close this portion of the hearing.
4:56.
Thank you for speaking.
Okay, am I okay to turn my microphone off?
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can reopen it if we need to and ask more questions, but we now can decide what we're going to do.
Can I ask a question of Crystal? Yeah. Are they required to have water on site if there's going to be a
We didn't have
fuel
anything,
burning?
we didn't have anything that said that, but if you believe that that's necessary, then that is something you guys could request.
It seems, given our recent experience with fire in our neighborhood, that during construction, like at construction sites or logging sites, they have a tanker or something there just for the time during construction so that there's immediate fire suppression should something go awry and we have winds and
So what did you call it, a tank?
well sometimes they have like tank water tankers. It's like a little truck water tanker so they can
Just kind of put that in handwritten note on my conditions, recommended conditions, and then if the planning commission wants to go that direction, then we would formulate a condition.
okay.
Commissioner Burnt, I have similar concerns, and I know in other areas when there is work being done, especially this time of year, there are hour restrictions for using equipment that could cause a spark. So I wonder if we should stipulate something of that nature, like work can only be done in the morning hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the chainsaw restriction hours.
I think if they had some sort of fire suppression large enough like a tank water tanker they could probably work and during because sometimes the county shuts down if we get to a certain temperature and humidity rating, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what those
I
hours.
mean, with safety first in mind.
Working hours down in my handwritten notes.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Who oversees like the tree removal? Or it's so the engineering company is going to be on site and overseeing that
Well,
everybody's in compliance. Is anybody from the city?
I think that you would, this tree removal thing, I believe that I put this in here
Yeah.
as just an option. It was not something called out, but I believe that Joseph and I saw that they would remove a tree or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
there's a tree
anyway,
close by.
if they're not moving it, the condition would be appropriate anyway, because
Yeah.
if you're not doing it, you're not doing it.
Right.
But so I believe the appropriate way to address that would be to make that part of Black Mountain's oversight so that they put it on the plan where it's going to be removed and they oversee it when it is being removed. I mean, maybe power saw or something is used. I don't know. And then our city manager and Public Works guy will have an opportunity to be at that site or see the plans, however they choose to be involved.
Okay, thank you.
You don't want to leave, I don't see what good a bunch of conditions are when you're sending construction people up there because that's not their job. And so the report, I thought, by the professionals, both of the reports were quite descriptive and useful. Normally, we might have to hire our own geologist or something to go up there and do it, but we all thought that they were pretty forthcoming with the concerns, and there was no, as far as we could tell, any attempt to um, suggest that there weren't concerns. So it seemed like a good fit.
Anything else? So we have some findings, some recommended findings by the staff. We have 8 points of recommended conditions of approval, and we've had suggestions of two more. I'd like to comment on the two additional ones. I would like us not to be any more restrictive than we would be for anyone else who has a permit, whether it's I mean, the city is handing out permits and they're doing, I mean, they're basically a concrete pad on the ground with and putting a skid on it. It isn't like it's not like a construction site. They may cut a tree, but it isn't like a big deal. Uh, we're not, as far as I know, the city doesn't have any restrictions on anybody else who might be cutting trees on their property or building houses or anything like that. I realize that fire is an issue. And I would think that um, water on site would probably cover anything that had to do with fire and would be sufficient.
My question was, Commissioner Head, if generators are subject to the same fire restrictions as chainsaws and weed whackers, any combustible tools with combustion engines that are operating,
Right.
Between the hours of 10 a.m. and 8 p.m., which is the most strict fire restriction.
I think
Maybe Carol would know. She's with the fire department.
Commissioner Lawton here. I would think it depends on when they plan to do construction. Do we know that at this point?
well, construction and running a chainsaw and running a generator are two different things. A chainsaw is just basically a thing that makes fire, and a generator has mufflers and fire suppressant, and it's a package that they have in hospitals. They have them all over the place. I mean, it's made to be safe.
Right.
You can believe that
Yeah.
T-Mobile's not going to plant a fire trap up on the
Right.
top of our
Oh, I
hill.
just, was just wondering if it was,
Yeah. Well,
the
that's what
the
she
same
said. It was.
restrictions apply as, other devices with combustion engines. Just a question.
I think the question of the question of a chainsaw or the generator are two different. That's two different issues. Commissioner Lovendahl.
Commissioner Lovendall, I agree with you. I think just during the installation, if they had water on site, that would cover everything. I think it would be very hard to restrict the hours because this thing goes on when there's an emergency and we don't know when the emergency is going to occur. Just my comment.
Do we have a motion?
Well, should we, before you go for a motion, do you want to do the specific finding that you would want? I mean, first you want to know if you like the way these findings are worded, because once you make a motion, what is it for, to accept the findings or?
So I would say I would recommend a motion to accept the staff recommended conditions of approval as written, and to add that there be a water truck on site, or a water source on site during construction in case of a fire. That's what I would
an actual
recommend.
motion?
No,
Make the motion,
I'm just
Greg.
talking. All right, I'll make that motion.
The motion.
Did you make that motion?
Yeah.
I second it.
This is what I hear. A fire protection.
Water truck or similar.
Water truck or other source.
Or other
should
source.
be on site for purposes,
During construction.
construction or disturbance.
During work.
I'll put ground disturbance and construction.
Thank you.
I mean, they're both defined different.
Jen, I did talk to Dave.
A fire protection
Okay.
source, water, truck, or other should be on site, shall be on site during ground disturbance and construction.
That's my motion.
Second it.
Commissioner Lovendall seconds. Discussion.
I'll say that Carol just mentioned that she talked to David Duncan about the project and he didn't seem to have any misgivings about the generator. So,
Great.
And
Great.
they did sign off.
right. Well, they signed off on, yeah, utility service confirmation, right?
Okay, well, I'm going to call the question then. Commissioner Lawton?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Burnt?
Yes.
Commissioner Head?
Yes.
Commissioner Lovendall?
Yes.
Commissioner Thielen is a yes. Okay.
So as you go into the next staff report, are you going to read this? You don't have to read this.
That one I have.
There's nobody new here.
There's nobody new here. Does anyone have any question about how this is going to go? So basically, we'll have a staff report. The proponent will speak. The opponent will speak. We will decide. We can ask questions. That's how it's going to go.
So, and if you want to have any opportunity to appeal this to the city council or anywhere else, you have to say your piece at this time. Just so that you're in the record as speaking. Now, when we call on the staff report, this will be by Joseph. He took the lead on this one.
There's your very own copy.
Yeah, and I can't remember. Oh, then we have to do the same thing with taking in new exhibits.
Oh, yes. So new exhibit has been given. I don't think I have them on this computer. We had photos submitted that showed some questionable utilities that looked like they were pre-existing on the lots already. We had no indication on the maps that they were there. It was all listed as proposed. So we would like the applicant, not right now, but when they come up to give their piece, to explain what they were and why they were there. He went out and double checked them before the meeting. I thought we were going to go out and meet there, but we had some crossed wires.
So we need to make those pictures an exhibit.
Okay.
Has everybody had a chance to see them, or
No.
do they want to see them?
Yes.
Okay. I will see if I have them on this computer.
Should we open this hearing first before we do any of this?
Yeah.
Okay, I call this hearing to order.
All right. Let me see if I can get those pulled up. And if I've already cleaned them out of my box, I already cleaned them out of my box, so I will go send them to myself real quick. I apologize for all the technical issues in this meeting.
No worries, Joseph. Thank you.
Average RV is 10 by 50. is not 10 by 50. I see
Address the traffic issue.
you're addressing
which
that.
is
Addressing
They
this.
come in early.
You're suggesting we
Traffic
address
issue
it.
for this RV
You mean,
park?
Yeah.
this?
No, we haven't talked about any of
No
it.
discussion about that.
Well, Christopher, I think Christopher can speak to that.
Okay.
But there is one,
So
this
on their application.
plan here shows the easement plans. They're talking about the flow of traffic. This is Madrona here. The flow of traffic can either go this way or this way.
We're not talking about the hearing.
Oh, you're not talking about the
No.
Oh, no, we haven't even gotten to the agenda items yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
At times when you have people coming in to discuss this, sometimes it's brought.
We probably
ahead in the
shouldn't have
agenda.
side conversations if you want to
Sorry, this,
speak.
it's not about the hearing.
Isn't it?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
It
No,
was
this
just
is,
agenda items.
something
No,
else.
actually,
Planning
nobody,
something else.
so that nobody spoke during the public time,
Okay.
which is shocking because there were 70 comments on the Facebook thread.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we'll probably end up tabling it until next month. It's like,
Oh, really?
And we
Really?
did,
yeah.
we added water use and wells.
And who added that?
Who did that?
Added
I
that
didn't,
one?
he didn't give me anything. I picked up some from him.
Sarah had brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah, evidently. Huh. Back in the old days, we all just meet in a room and pass papers around and smoke cigars, and
Remember?
All right.
it'd be done by now.
I don't.
Oh, you're too young.
It's pre me.
Remember
So
mimeograph.
when we get to the, so this is going to be exhibit. You opened,
E.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Exhibit E.
so can you make this a part of your staff report?
I would just put it on at the end, just to bring up that we have seen these and that there's
I saw the.
questions pertaining to what they are and why they are there
And they can
in
come back.
physical nature,
I
but
see.
not in
Okay, so we're just looking.
a map.
Well,
Yeah,
we
but
were
they aren't
just
on the map.
getting them so that we could have them part of the hearing.
Yep. And Chris
Saw those.
and have an opportunity to talk about them. But
Okay.
So do we have any other exhibits for this one? Did anything else come in, Joseph?
nothing else came in, and all the other exhibits are just the application, which all of the commissioners should have copies of.
Mhm.
Were there any letters?
No letters submitted. We had one person come in and give verbal testimony, and they were referred to come back and give verbal testimony again today. So I
Okay.
believe that we will get to that when we get to citizen testimony. So
Okay, go ahead with your staff report then, please.
staff report. This is staff report for POC. That is Port Orford Conditional Use Permit 23-02. It is for lot 231532 DC 200 and 3215 32 DC 300. This is on the corner of Madrona and Highway 101. A little bit north of, if you remember when we looked at Guy Vernon's property a couple months ago, it's a little bit north of that, and across the street, or across the highway, I should say, from Salty Dog, I believe. The proposal is to turn lot 200 into an RV park, to have 6 spaces for long-term RV stays. It will have access through lot 300 from Madrona Avenue, and the house that currently exists on lot 300 will be used as sort of a management office. The applicant has let me know it's not being converted. There's no structure being changed on it. It's just the park manager is going to be staying there from the sound of things. So going through this like Crystal did on page 2, we start with our definitions, which we have the definitions for conditional use and recreational vehicles and recreational vehicle park. Unfortunately, our code was adopted prior to new state law that allows recreational vehicles to be used as an option for long-term parking or long-term residential use, I should say. So we have included the state definition, which is from ORS 197 on page 3, because we are going to be using that definition so that we are more compliant with state law. And in it, it allows RVs to be used for long-term residential use, provided that they are located in a manufactured dwelling park, mobile home park, or recreational vehicle park, that it is occupied as a dwelling, and that it is lawfully connected to sewer, water, and electrical supply system. So the state will allow it, provided that the hookups are there and that it has that designation. Moving on to page 4, if everyone is ready. All right. It's the use zone is both properties are located entirely in the commercial zone or the 4C zone, which would make an RV park or mobile home park allowable via conditional use. It's not outright permitted. It's strictly commercial. It is strictly conditional provision of sewer and water. The subject's property has one existing dwelling that has all of its utility hookups, and the other lot has a well that is pre-existing. At this time, it's pre-existing. The Coos Curry Electric has signed off that electricity would be available, and our Superintendent of Public Works, John Isidore, has put forth the conditions that the sewer line be inspected and cameraed prior to the connection to the main line. So before they would be allowed to access our sewer system, they would have to more rigorously inspect it, camera it, and get a sign off from our head of public works, which has been included as a condition. On page 5, application for conditional use. It was filed on July 22nd, deemed complete on August 18th, and the hearing was scheduled for today. And then additional standard governing conditional uses. Most of these are about standards in residential zones, so most of them do not apply. However, number 2, limitation on access to property, has a condition, not because this was the best place for us to stick it, basically, that because the access is coming across lot 300 to lot 200, they need to have a restrictive covenant or easement that allows that, to allow the lot to remain open in case lot 300 gets sold independently of lot 200. Because they are separate legal lots, we need to have some agreement in writing that lot 200 will continue to be serviced, or alternative plans to connect it to the highway. Like I said, should the two lots be separated in the future and easement is not, given. City may require assurances or guarantee development in accordance with standards. After hearing the presentation and the public comment, it is appropriate for the Planning Commission, you, to consider whether additional assurances are necessary to guarantee development in accordance with the standards in granting use. Next, we have 173260, time on a permit for conditional use. Staff recommends that, similar to the previous conditional use permit, that we have the applicant sign a document acknowledging 321760. So if they need an extension, it's not a surprise to anyone. Then we move on to the second half of page 6. Chapter 1716, supplementary provisions. This is where we get into the archaeological stuff. Staff recommends a condition for approval that requires the applicant to cease work immediately upon the discovery of archaeologically significant artifacts and notify me, Joseph Harrison, at the city for further instruction. It is appropriate for the commission to put forth recommendations for if things are discovered during the course of development. Moving on to 17, erosion prevention and sediment control. The finding, the application, they assumed responsibility for adhering to the City of Port Orford Municipal Code, Chapter 17-1750. More than 800 square feet of soil is being disturbed and will be displaced, and proper erosion control practices need to be in place. As a condition, staff recommends requiring a more detailed plan when they are actually going forth with development. And then similarly on storm and surface water management, they are going to have more than 500 square feet of impervious cover on the ground. That just being the RVs themselves, the size of RVs times the number of RVs that they're proposing means that more than the 500 square feet threshold will be covered by impervious surfaces, and thus they need to have a more detailed sediment and storm surface water management plan in place. It is appropriate for the Planning Commission to require the applicant to address the requirements with analysis and findings relative to 1718 and address any storm and surface water management standards. The Commission should require such analysis provided to the city engineer, who will review the applicant's plans for proposed use and compliance with the code. This may require further communication, specifications for compliance, and any inspections that are necessary to carry out the purposes of this chapter. This will be at the expense of the applicant. And then the notice for this was provided on August 25th. At the time of drafting, as I previously stated, one person had provided public comment. They'd come in to talk about with issues they had with it, and we referred them to come and voice their grievances. Now, so staff conditions for approval: the sewer line needs to be inspected and cameraed prior to hookup to the city sewer system. 2, the applicant needs to show documentation of well approval from the Oregon Health Authority and Oregon Water Resources Department prior to installation. However, the walls are already been installed, so we need to talk about that a little. The 3, applicant provides a signed acknowledgement of 173260. 4, the applicant provides a more in-depth erosion control plan detailing the practices and devices to be used during development as a condition of the planning clearance process. And 5, the applicant shall comply with section 176060 for archaeological discoveries.
Crystal?
I would like to add two other staff recommendations, which I only thought of when Joseph was reading this. And one would be number 6, that the dwelling needs to check with the city to see if a home occupation permit is required. That is not something that comes through the Planning Commission. And
No, it's a business license, basically. Okay.
so, and the other one would need a business license too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they probably both would if you're using one in conjunction with the other.
I have a question on the wording on something. I'd wait till
Okay,
after.
I have one
everybody-
more. Okay, that they need to comply with all building codes requirements, which we talked about. We just didn't get it in here because building codes may have more stringent requirements, or we don't have requirements. So, maybe they've drawn something in building codes says, well, you don't need to do that or something. We don't care about those things unless there's something we've addressed.
Is this the time we look at those pictures and
Yes.
talk about what that is?
So, thank you for bringing that back up. These are what appear to be utility hookups that were all listed as proposed on the plat. They are physically constructed. By all accounts, they appear to actually be there right now. I don't think that they're being serviced though, so it's just the construction on their end that's done. Um, and during the applicant's time to speak, we ask, for some background on these so we know uh, specifically what they are and when they went in, if possible. And if commissioners have any other questions about them, now would be the time to ask.
So we would want to know if they were put in without approval.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the staff report.
I think so.
Okay, great. Then let's have the proponent step forward and state your name and the person in favor. No, you come up to the microphone, state your name. You're a newbie here. You gotta.
Where you live?
It's how you do it. State your name, where you live, and what's going on.
Okay, my name is Christopher Kinney with Civil West. The representative of the applicant, David Clark, who is the owner of these properties. And so we've prepared this for him, all of the survey, the design, and the application. And so then I could just go in and address these. Is that, are we ready to do that then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just tell us what you're doing and.
Oh, right. Okay.
Run
So
through make your argument and
got it. Okay.
we'll ask you questions.
So the owner, been the owner for many years of these properties, and he would like to install an RV park for 6 spots for long term, being by the month for this lot 200 behind this already built up lot, which has the existing dwelling unit. And so then, we propose, as Joseph mentioned, access through that, being about like a one-way drive through or and exiting either way. Um, and basically will be compacted gravel surfacing. So we'll maintain the permeability of the site overall, besides the roofs of the RVs themselves. And the applicant agrees to adhere to all standards and laws and rules in regards to the development. So I guess that leads me to the proposed and existing conditions. So with the photos that he had up earlier, we surveyed the there's a 400 amp service by Coos Curry Electric. That was that photo on the right. So we were hired by David Clark a year ago, and this was there. So that's what we surveyed that in, and I believe that's already has power coming up to it. That's at the property line that he wants to draw service from, extend lines to each of the RV spots themselves, and then and that was shown on the existing conditions plan C1 on the south, or yeah, this would be the west, on the west side, and then the photo. So that's the well. That's the water well in the middle. That was installed, I believe, January of this year in the moratorium and that was with the idea of being the water supply for the spots. And we have records of that, of the well log, and then he agrees to adhere to the OHA standards. We'll share this all with OHA as well, and it would be subject to the groundwater rule, I believe, which is periodic testing for water quality and whatnot in order to service to the connections. And then to the left, after did include those in the survey, but I failed to throw this on the existing conditions. Basically, they are just conduits he installed 5-6 years ago when he first had the idea of developing this park. So talking to him about it again, what his idea was, that was kind of what he was originally. But he knows that he might remove those or do whatever is necessary to make it legit. And so what you're seeing is just a conduit for power, conduit for water, although it has no service to them. And then I think there was 2 cleanouts for sewer, which these were installed by Jack and Neil Lewis. I think he said they were contractors that worked for him originally 5 years ago. So they're the ones who actually put it in place, and he communicated to me that the 2 sewer cleanouts connect to the sewer of the house, but haven't been used at all since they were put in. So he knows, whatever it takes to make this all illegal. Whenever he will do what is necessary, and also for the proposed plan. I mean, this is not even aligned with the proposed plan anyway. So there's going to be some modifications necessary to readjust the location of these unused stub outs. That would be pretty easy to do. So as dig up and re-put it back to where we propose them to be. Um, and then we show erosion sediment control, adhering to BMP's best management practices for silt control. Although more than 800 square feet of ground will be disturbed, mostly being scarifying to put in the compacted gravel. So not major earthworks involved, but still we want to be of the erosion and to protect any waterways. So, as a conservative measure, not only putting surrounding silt fencing around, I mean, it doesn't even have to be silt fencing. It could also be compost barrier or whatever BMPs are necessary. And to just follow the slope and maybe some additional silt fencing or barrier control to hold all disturbed ground on site. And then we'll have designated areas for garbage and for stockpiles and whatnot. But as requested, we'll provide more details when we get there. And then construction entrance, just all the standard BMPs for erosion control. And I don't know if I think that wraps it up. It's kind of straightforward. Apart from that, I don't know. I guess that's my end, unless I'm missing something. But
Okay, thank you. So we can ask now, or should we should have, yeah, we ask questions. Commissioner Lovendall.
Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. I have a couple of questions. I guess this was very enlightening. I'm kind of stunned he got all this in before approval, but we'll deal with that later. Did you look at this? This is a geologic hazard map. We just kind of looked at it. And I noticed that on the lot 200, if this is correct, this little squiggly line of the greater than 15% grade and a little bit on lot 300. Has that been taken into account? Do we need to do I can ask Crystal, do we need a geologic hazard? Do there has to be mitigation? Does there have to be no construction within so far,
Well,
distance?
to me, it looks like it's on the edge of the property, and I think we
Comes in a
should,
little.
yeah, we should require, you're an engineer, correct?
Mm.
Them to give us a topo map so that we can determine that. And maybe you've already organized that, I
Isn't
don't
this a
know.
topo right here?
to
C1 has topo lines on it.
Yeah, but I don't know what they're saying.
What's a topo map?
to reiterate what you were asking about was 30%. That was on the
It's
hazard.
greater than
15%.
15. I don't know what
15. Got it.
it's greater than 15. I don't know what that means precisely as it pertains to your proposal on lot 200.
So on C1, I put in arrows for the existing slopes, and we've proposed the edge of the access way and the silt fencing from which development will to that where that slope bank happens. So we show where the slope drops down greater than 15. So in this case, if you look on the top portion of C2, on the erosion control plan, that is, you'll see slopes greater than 30%, in this case, 35%, 25%, where it drops down. So we're just only going to stay clear of that more towards the western portion. So on our survey, we've marked out those points where that edge of bank is.
So Commissioner Head Christopher, on C2, the dark line is the proposed silt fence.
Correct.
And then the RVs would be back here.
Correct. Yeah.
It looks pretty flat. I have a question about the 400 amp panel.
Mhm.
Maybe I missed it, but does that also service the house? Or is that installed for the RV park, for the purposes of the park?
That is separate from my understanding because we have an existing service from, I guess you could see existing
On
condition.
C1?
And C2 also shows it too, but you could see the existing the OH line type connecting to that pole in front of the property, that overhead power line.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an overhead service going to that house, cutting through the middle at like a diagonal. And that, to my understanding, is the existing service to the residential building. So then this 400 amp panel is then serviced by the other power pole. But we also, with the service confirmation with Cruz Curry Electric, they provided also their map of their connections as well to verify what I'm.
And when did you say that was installed?
This
The
amp,
400 amp panel?
I'm not sure.
Okay, it was already there.
Yeah. It was already there before we began working on it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask you a question about the well?
Mm-hmm.
The well was put in January.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? And do you know if it is up to code for a community well? Because it's going to service over 4 places. Isn't there I could be wrong on this, so you probably know more than I do. But anything over 3 houses that are served, if it's 4 or more, it's considered a community well and has a different standard.
He got the well reports. I don't think it was Applegate who was the installer. We have documentation for the well record itself. In terms of being classified as a
community well.
Community well, we'll double check with OHA and see for their comments.
And Joseph has that in as a condition.
He does.
They need to show documentation from Oregon Health Authority and Oregon Water Resources Department prior to installation.
Prior to installation, but it's installed already.
We'll have to change the wording
They
on
would
that.
need to. They would need to check it and see if it's up to speed for 6 units. If they end up with 6, if the county changes it to 5, when they go for a building permit, that's okay. If the county changes it to 7, maybe that's not okay because that's not what we're
talking about.
Reviewing. Right.
Right.
Clarification on the number of existing housing units. There's 2 on the property. Is that correct?
1. There should, I think, 1 to my knowledge. I think we showed 2. I think this is a garage. I'm not too certain. I think it's just 1 residential.
I was on the property and it did look like it was residential or being used as residential. Not clear about that. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah. For what, 300, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's someone already renting out.
So there's actually 2 residential units being used on lot 300. Is that correct?
1 to my knowledge. I don't know too much on the existing conditions of the structure itself or the house, or my knowledge is that it's only 1 residential house and that there's 1 renter.
They're separate. They are separate. They're not connected.
Okay.
And do you know if the owner plans to, at some point, utilize the well for those houses as well?
Since they already seem to already have water, I don't believe so. I think it would be strictly for the RV.
Well, the well would be less money for them if they were to connect to that, correct? They wouldn't need to pay the city? That's the only reason I would ask, is if to save money, they would connect the houses then. Mm-hmm. Do you know if they have any plans for that?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is the other structure, is that a garage or is it enclosed?
I can't say with certainty. I don't know. I haven't seen too much of the building myself. From the survey, I think, or talking with the survey who did this, I think he said it was a garage, or I'm not sure. The focus has been more on the developing the back and the building itself. I'm not sure how the internal layout is.
Okay, thank you.
I have two questions. And this may be more directed to Crystal because it's code. Um, are there any codes pertaining to distance setbacks for RVs?
There are, but it's not in our code. There is, and both Christopher and I looked at it, I think building codes has quite a layout for RV parks. And I have studied them a little bit. I mean, we don't enforce them. So I don't know them or understand everything that's required, but yeah, they require distances of from one RV to the next. They require certain kinds of roads. They require a number of things.
Okay,
A
thank
lot
you.
of cities do have additional code, but it may not be a priority here just because we don't allow it in a lot of zones and
Okay, thank you.
it seems pretty. It's quite a few pages of requirements. Yeah.
It,
Um, Go ahead.
it seems to me that if we're going to give conditional use to a new project, it should follow what the code is
Yes.
instead of just grandfathering in something that was existing that we may have to live with because it's always been there. So I think that's important. That would be important to note what the actual requirements are in the code today.
No, there aren't any.
Oh, I thought you said there were.
No, I said there are requirements in building codes, which are under the county, not us.
Oh, but not for RV parks.
Yes, there are,
So
but not in our code.
Not in the city code,
Right.
but
It's
this
in the
project would be subject to the county,
building
whatever the
codes.
county building codes are for
Okay.
RV
So
parks.
the UBC they would have to follow the UBC.
They have a number of recommendations, not recommendations, requirements.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
would apply.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Thank
They
you.
would apply whether we said something else or not.
Great.
There's trumps ours. Yeah.
Actually, I
so
have
we don't have
three
to,
questions now.
we don't have
So
to say
the
they want them to.
second one has to do with fire suppression and hydrants. And is there one nearby?
I believe there is an existing fire hydrant nearby within a 500 radius, but for I mean, if the need is to do fire suppression, we could put a tank there, or we'll do whatever would be necessary to mitigate that.
I think that building codes has a requirement for that. But, if you want, I mean, this is just going ahead, but if you wanted him to come back with something from building codes about some of these things, you could require that.
Yeah. I think that would be great.
He was very cooperative when we were doing this. I asked him to go look at building codes and make sure that he catered his plan somewhat to what he was seeing so that it wasn't a big surprise. But we didn't talk about all the specifics.
Okay. And then my last question pertains to landscaping. Is there a plan for landscaping?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a last, just a clarification for Christopher on C5. This easement, I just wanted to verify that it hasn't been decided what direction traffic is going to go in here.
Nuh-uh.
Okay.
Just that one will be used as an entrance, the other as an
Right.
exit.
It'll be a one-way traffic flow. Okay. Thank you.
With regard to that, is there a proposed apron, solid apron that would take it from the road onto the driveway?
Solid apron meaning like concrete or
Yes.
asphalt?
Yes.
We haven't proposed that, but we were thinking of compacted gravel, but yeah, that's kind of like you guys kind of see on C3 with the construction entrance, even though it's like a erosion control BMP, that's kind of where we think just a gravel entranceway.
It might not be required.
Yeah, are aprons required by code for?
I don't know.
I
I can't answer that.
mean, that's something that we should be looked at.
Mhm.
If it's required, we
Yeah.
should require that.
I have another quick question while Crystal's looking. Are there any, are there any, there's no wetlands in the area? Are there any culverts or anything like that?
Culverts, no wetlands. I believe if you go to
To the
the
east,
or to
right?
the north,
Oh, right, to the north.
go to like the wetlands inventory website and you kind of see
Mhm.
some of their
Also under the
lineations. There, once that drop off, once the topography changes,
Mhm.
that's basically kind of like where they estimate the
Right.
boundaries to be.
Okay.
I have a question about. I have a couple questions. One is the on C4. I can see the layout, the proposed layout of the 6 rental spaces for the RVs. They appear to be 15 by 30 feet by my ruler,
Mhm.
using the scale. Then will that be inclusive of parking? Will people be required to park on that, or will it be parking be in the turnaround area?
Since it would be where people bring in their trailer, the idea would be what either the trailer themselves, if it's a self-driving, or the vehicle with the trailer behind, as all inclusive within those,
Within 30 feet?
more or less. I mean, we could further define it if you want, like, yeah, estimated boundary of parking.
Well, a car is 20 feet, which would leave 10 feet. And I drove through the RV park, the Madrona RV park and the one across the street. I didn't see anything even 15 feet, even 15 feet long. We're looking 25, 30 feet for these kinds of RVs. So I'm just, so, so parking is an issue for me. And it also gets into the hard surfaced area that's covered, that in the estimate of the amount of water, hard surface, impervious surface, the estimate on the application was 15 feet long, 10 feet wide for the average RV, and there were no RVs that short in either of those parks. So I think the impervious area is going to be quite a bit bigger, and that doesn't include awnings either, or bump outs. So I'm thinking that the requirement for impervious should be possibly even double what it is, which would involve uh, further contact with the city and engineering for water runoff. So I'm just curious, where did the idea that 15 feet was the average RV come from? Is that a
Are you talking about 15 feet in length or
10
what?
feet? 10 by 15 is the average on page, on the application. On the application, it's on erosion prevention and sediment control. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it says,
Be like 10 feet wide, 15 feet long.
yeah,
Hmm.
that seems like about half of what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
That was just quick stuff for like average RV size. I know they come in all shapes and sizes, and maybe that's an I don't know.
Yeah, well,
So you would
I have a tiny one and it's 19 feet.
okay.
So 15 is nothing.
Okay. I mean, I know with these, like on the plans, we show 15 by 30 feet long, just and so it's kind of like that was to maybe taking this average length or and plus what extra. I mean, but it sounds like this might be on the low side. So
So I would say that from a public works standpoint, we should consider that the maximum size of an RV would be what was on each lot in case of a downpour or whatever. I mean, it's like that's how you do flush toilets. You know, you don't just say the average number of people in a room. You say the maximum number of people. So
I mean, we could easily modify to it to
yeah.
take into account the extra space, and,
So
and I would have imagined since we show 30 and saying what would be the like, I mean, whatever the max would be plus, I mean, we could extend this um, compacted gravel surface area, even though it's still the surface itself will still be permeable. I know you're probably speaking in terms of the roofing of the RV itself, maybe adding a couple, I don't know, maybe at max 10% to the imperviousness is projected. I know we're using the estimate of 10 by 15 feet for 6 spots being 10% impervious covered
right.
by roof
I
only.
would say it was about double that. I would think.
Okay, I mean, we could certainly just take that and, I mean, we could modify and use that then into our.
But I'm not an expert. I mean, I don't. All I know is what I see, and I see these
Uh,
huge RVs. They're not 10 by 15. They're 30 by whatever they are with bump outs.
Plus a vehicle. Yeah.
Plus a vehicle.
okay.
That's an impervious surface too, that comes with the territory. Even though it's not built, it still is an impervious surface.
And so I have a question then about that. There's no parking designated anywhere on the site, right? Just associated with each of the individual spots.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't be any parking on the road, for example, or
No, it was assumed that the vehicles would accompany the trailers
okay,
to these
to the spot.
preliminary
They have to,
outlines.
yeah.
What about visitors?
What's
How would they be accommodated?
that? I mean, the idea is that the users, I don't know, we weren't really estimating any visitors to the users, but
Most people have visitors.
These are
And people,
residences where people live.
yeah, long term.
um, so okay. Well, I mean, we can modify and show these plans to accommodate more parking for visitors and for wider trailers if you wanted.
I haven't visited the site. Where is residential parking? Like I'm looking at C4, for example,
Right.
for the resident, where is there a driveway
Yeah,
in between the two, like the easements that are proposed?
where the
Somewhere?
existing driveway is.
Yeah. Is that
It's
here?
it's oh yeah
No, we're not gonna
Okay.
do this today. This will
Okay.
be.
that's the driveway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's going to have to be some place for
Okay.
overflow parking. You know what I mean? On the site. Can't be on the street. Madrona's pretty narrow. Are there parking requirements for?
Actually, in 4C, there's not.
No, right.
But for residences,
Right.
I believe the codes apply,
And I believe building codes has.
and building codes do too.
You know,
Okay.
the more I'm hearing this, the more I am thinking that we need to, tell them, I mean, as we sit here, and maybe this isn't the right time.
No, let's hold off on it.
Okay.
So we have a chance for an opponents to speak now. I think you've said what you said. We've asked you some questions. We have made some notes. What we're thinking, we may call you back up.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, Christopher.
Yes, thank you.
Now, do we have any opponents to this? And please come up and state your name and where you live.
Oh,
Tim Leslie, 521 Madrona, directly across the street from the proposed development. First of all, I'd like a postponement of this meeting for at least 30 to 60 days to examine the proposed development, considering I had 8 days notice. Okay? And there's a lot to go over. Not to mention the sites that were put in over 5 years ago were illegally put in. He didn't pull any permits for them. I've lived there for over 10 years, and I've watched everything that's been done on that property. So at this point, we need more time. And you've got a centenarian living next door, and a 75-year-old son. And I mean adjacent to one of those units. And those people have to be involved too. So I'd like to see a postponement of this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have my email address. You can just notify me. Thank you.
You have his email address?
Yeah.
I believe so. If we've communicated previously, then I will have it, and my email will remember it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, excuse me, Tim, what was your last name?
What?
Your last name?
Leslie.
Leslie, Tim Leslie. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Is there any online that would like to speak, that is not in favor of this, that would like to speak?
Greg, do we need to extend the meeting?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, since we were past 5:30, do we need to officially extend the meeting?
Um,
No?
would anyone like to make a motion to extend this meeting for 10 minutes
Oh,
or for half hour?
I move to extend the meeting for 30 minutes. Commissioner Head.
I second it. Commissioner Lovendall.
Discussion?
Oh, well.
Commissioner Lawton,
Yes.
Commissioner Burnt,
Sure.
Commissioner
Yes.
Head,
Yes.
Commissioner Lovendall.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay, so we're going to continue this meeting. It looks to me like there's a lot more information I'm not going to be prepared to make a decision on this. I can't vote yes or no. I don't have enough information. It doesn't look like it pencils out. It doesn't look like it inks out. I think some more things have to happen. I'd like to see Christopher go to the county codes, find out what parking is required for residential, finding out what the reasonable permeability stuff is, what the requirements for RV parks are, whether there needs to be a fire hydrant. And I'm curious if there's any difference between short-term rental or between a short rental and a long rental in what is proposed, but that's the curb cut or the apron. Those are all issues that I think we're just citizens. We don't know this stuff. So that we need to have this stuff laid in front of us to
And the
make a
well,
decision.
they could do the well. I didn't know if they were going to have an archaeologist on, if you were recommending having an archaeologist on site.
Yeah.
I just,
So I guess I'm trying to cross-reference this to what the application was or is and how that fits in with, I mean, does our application address these things and they were overlooked, or are they just
No.
not things that just don't come up? How do we reference what we're asking for? If you don't understand.
We don't have any city codes for RV parks, but building codes has quite a few requirements. And the problem we're issuing is that we don't know what building codes requires. So we don't know what to require.
Okay.
And I think that we should ask Christopher to come back to us with something that will comply with building codes and present us that so that we know what they're requiring and whether otherwise, we're going into a lot of things like signing, lighting, and all kinds of things that we don't know what they address. And we're not expected to know what they address. But I think when you're doing something like this, we probably have to understand, unless you went all overboard and proposed a bunch of stuff that might not even fit building codes.
Yeah.
So, Crystal, are you suggesting that Christopher needs to talk to the county for this?
Not the county, it's the state building codes, which is under
State
the
codes.
county.
Okay, thank you.
Because, but
Go ahead and come up.
But there,
Please, you can be on record.
In regards to building codes, I mean, I did reach out. I did, go dissect the state codes for RV parks, which are mostly for the utility portions. I've noted everything I possibly could in regards to what requirements are out there on record to follow by, and on the project narrative, I try to include as much as possible from ORS or from the tables of, or the code tables from I think it was the appendix E from the state building codes for RV parks. I mean, what is not there is what I couldn't simply find, or if I don't even know if it existed. But in terms of, I remember calling up Curry County's representative for the building codes and asking any specific requirements. But I mean, it sounds like, I mean, I guess I could provide even more information if you guys want, just to since there's a lot of uncertainty, or just, I don't know, since.
Yeah,
I
so
think that
you've
would
heard
be
our
great.
specifics.
Hmm.
We had some specifics, the apron,
Mhm.
parking.
And if I would, I mean, with aprons, for example, or drivable surface, I mean, if there was a specific requirement for AC concrete, for example, I would have definitely showed it. But since I haven't seen, or maybe a workable or hardened surface, maybe is a definition. I know that's in Coos County where I'm reside. I know that's kind of what they say, like being compacted gravel being what could be counted for that, and see nothing specific outside of that. I don't know. Just uh,
get a copy of the city's access application.
what's that?
The city has an access application. And you could look at that and see what that requires for a business.
Okay.
And then
Ah,
if it has specific requirements, then you would want to include those. And if it doesn't have specific requirements, then you've heard what people are saying, and you can consider whether that would be appropriate to put in your plan, or whether there's a reason not to do that, or why it's not useful, and explain that to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Commissioner Head, yeah, there's two other RV parks within the city limits, right? I mean, there has to be some precedent for, I'm not sure the one across over by the
It's been
Salty
there a
Dog.
long time.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that one,
The
but
last 20 years.
I mean, the one over by Gold Beach Lumber, I think would serve as a good model for how big the spot should be, how far apart. I mean, maybe there was some kind of code that they followed, because whatever they did, it's a well-maintained park that seems to have enough, of everything.
I'd go talk to Tim
Oh, Pogwist, yeah.
who owns the RV park up on,
He's on the
Orford
city
Loop.
council, though, right?
he's
Yeah.
on
No,
the
no,
city
no, no,
council.
no, no.
If it gets appealed, he wouldn't be able to participate.
Right.
Well,
Or the owner of the park right over by, just over here by, across from, City Hall.
I have a quick question with regard to the well again. Um, Is there a difference between a commercial designation and a residential
Yes.
designation for wells? It differs on the plan clearance application. It's listed as a commercial well. On the um, on the well report, it's listed as a residential or domestic well. Do you know, is there a difference in what that would be?
That's in the conditions that Joseph has put in here. Joseph did research, and because it's a business, that's why we put in that he needs the approval from the Oregon Health Authority and Oregon Water Resources Department.
Okay, thank you.
And we would need a copy of that. And, and if it has to be done every year, then they would have to do it every year. We don't know.
so here we are. I don't think anybody here is going to vote for it until we have more information. I think that's kind of where we're at. You've heard what we've said. You've heard our questions. You know where we're at.
Okay. Thanks.
I don't know how formal we need to be.
Well, I think that there's other things that we probably haven't addressed that should be conditions. These don't mean they're things that happen first, but Joseph and I can get our heads together and get them on here. Things like the systems development charge, whether those are happening right now, so that they would know ahead of time.
For the
And
sewers.
yeah, and the things like our right of way permit, which you can pick up anytime, and our lighting codes. We have dark sky, and probably you would. I don't know if you have it on here, but you would want lighting in an RV park anyway. That would be required. I mean, you would want that. Anybody would want that, and because you have a bunch of people living in close proximity. And then there's other things like a sign code that will be required, compliance with the city. Uh, Fire hydrants, I would check if building codes doesn't have it. I would check with the fire department because they shouldn't be doing a sign off unless we have what a city should have for fire hydrants.
They would also need to have, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but access for a fire truck to go in there,
Right.
turn
So
around,
we will
come
need
back
that.
with no cars there.
Yep. Yeah.
All that's, yeah.
Oh, wait, I did show it to the fire chief,
I
and he
know,
had,
but it looks like they just signed off and didn't give any suggestions. I mean,
I know I showed him the plans, and
I know it doesn't really say what they're signing off.
Well, if they
on.
drive in and there's cars parked in there, if they drive in and there's cars parked and they can't get to can't get their truck turned around, I mean, people die. It's like,
I also thought the minimum width for access was 20, is it 20 feet?
feet.
Yeah, 20 feet, I
for a
think.
fire truck.
Well, I
For a
thought,
fire truck,
yeah,
yeah.
at least, or 24.
Mhm.
And they're talking 15 here.
Yeah, so I don't know why they would sign off on something like that. I don't think they paid attention.
They
So
didn't
you
even
might-
check off
might wanna have a more
on-site water storage
conversation
or
with them.
any of those that are listed.
It's better if you have the conversation than if we have the conversation. I mean, we're not trying to
So I have a,
make it hard. We're just trying to make sure that it's adequate.
we're concerned with safety. I'm concerned with safety and it's also health and safety and other things too.
Impact on the on residents,
Yeah.
nearby residents. Yeah. So do we make a motion to table it?
So if the decision body, if we wanted to continue the discussion or the public hearing to another meeting, if either the public hearing or the decision making is to be carried over to another meeting, the date and place of the meeting should be announced at this time. This is so the hearing and or discussion do not have to be re-advertised. I suggest we hold the public hearing over because we want to gather more information. We want more testimony. We want more documents and testimony. So I would entertain a motion.
Next time, or it could be 2, and maybe he could tell us how long he needs.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
ask him.
how long would you like?
30 days, 60 days?
maybe we could just do the next meeting or whatever works.
1 month?
Yeah, that works.
30 days. So our next meeting is scheduled to be the 2nd, October 2nd.
Back to the East Coast.
No.
Excuse me, October 3rd. I'm sorry. October 3rd. So do we have a motion to hold the
Do we
public
need
hearing over till the 3rd?
hold it over? Does
To
that,
hold it over,
Continue. It's
to
called
continue it.
okay, I make a motion to continue the hearing until October 3rd, on October 3rd.
Second,
I second it.
discussion? Commissioner
Lawton. Commissioner Lawton.
Layton,
Yes.
it's not Lawton, I'm sorry. I have a terrible mind.
It'll happen eventually.
Commissioner Burnett,
Yes.
Commissioner Head,
Yes.
Commissioner Lovendall.
Yes.
Commissioner Thielens, yes. We're going to hold this over.
Thank you,
Oh,
Christopher.
Thank you for coming in.
I would like to make one more
Thank you.
comment. If you are not going to be ready for the hearing, be sure and let us know, because we need to continue it then to the next month at the next hearing, so that, just so that we get it into our notes and stuff ahead, so that Joseph and I don't forget it at the end or something.
I'd also like to make a suggestion that you get Chief Duncan to complete this.
What is it not completed?
These things haven't been addressed, where it asks if there's sufficient water storage or if it's needed or not, driveway clearance, and you'll probably have to
You need
show
a copy of it?
Okay. We'll get it in person too.
Yes, so those haven't been addressed in this application.
Yeah.
Could you? I don't know.
Okay, so
The chairman.
This
I'm
is a
closed.
learning experience for us.
I'm
too.
closing the hearing for today. Now, we're back to our regular meeting.
Oh,
We're not going home yet, folks.
I think you're done. Yeah, we have just the regular agenda. Bye,
you.
Christopher.
So we have some discussion items.
I can keep mine brief.
Can you,
Yeah, we can move it to next.
okay,
Yeah, I just,
yeah, I'd like to, yeah, say what you need to say and we'll
Okay.
hold it over too.
all right. So, originally there was some question about who owned Jackson Street, and the traffic officer, John, I can't remember his name. Is it John? The traffic officer?
I think it's Mark.
Mark? Oh no, he's the new one. Anyway, there was some question about who owned that. Maybe ODOT owned Jackson Street because it was the former highway. So I called ODOT last week, and the city of Port Orford is the owner of Jackson Street. So any issues would be governed by the city. And I explained a little bit about what's happening, and they said you have a law enforcement issue. And it's a shame that Officer Andrew isn't here anymore. The police know that speeding on Jackson is a huge problem. A neighbor of mine, in between the last meeting and now, just recently made a post on Facebook on Port Orford Networks about the egregious speeding on Jackson. And it became apparent in the comments thread, there were more than 70 comments, that it's not just a Jackson Street problem, it's an Idaho problem, a Washington problem, a Madrona problem, a Port Orford Loop problem, and a Pinehurst problem, and a Lakeshore Drive problem. It's an everywhere problem, and of course, speeding on the highway. So there are two main issues. There's daytime speeders who are mostly on the residential streets, mostly local, and who are choosing not to observe the speed limit. And then there's the nighttime shenanigans. And most everybody knows in town that we don't have police officers on duty at night. And so we've got some neighbors that come out around 11:30 with really noisy, not street legal vehicles, no lights, and they're often inebriated. And then there's also cars that kind of use the town's residential streets as a racetrack, down Jackson over to Pinehurst, a big loop. And it's dangerous. It wakes people up in the middle of the night. My neighbor who made the post has two small children. Julian and I are woken up on a regular basis. Sometimes we have to go out and confront these people and ask them please to stop racing up and down the street in the middle of the night because we work. So I was looking into traffic calming strategies. I'll give these to you, Carol, but I'm just going to hang on to them for just a second. There were lots of good suggestions on the Facebook thread, but two that I thought were really great. One, speed bumps, which takes care of both the nighttime and the daytime speeding. And there's no need to install new road or anything. There's a company that makes these calming devices, rubber speed humps, out of recycled rubber tires, and they're made for the speed limit of our residential streets. They can be 3 or 4 inches tall and as wide as we need to. They lock together and they can be bolted down to the street and removed easily if there's road work and reinstalled. And I'm going to share these with Joseph so he can get them in the packet for next week. And then there's the idea of municipal enforcement cameras. And so we have dedicated traffic officers sitting on the highway on a regular basis. They can't be there all the time. They can't be anywhere all the time. And these cameras catch speeders going in both directions. They have, technology that allows them to capture the plates and issue a ticket. So these could happen, on the loop, on Jackson, on the highway, near the school zone, to free the officers up for real, for other crimes. And so just to propose solutions, I think that's pretty much all I've got for now. I mean, speeding on the highway is an issue too, and I regularly cross in the evening when I'm coming back from karate, and cars will be coming through at, 60, 70 miles an hour when the police officers aren't there, when it's too late, and it's just, it's a citywide issue. And so, um, I'd like to see it on the agenda for the next meeting, and so we can start to talk about some real solutions.
Thank
I,
you,
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Head.
You're
I've
welcome.
talked with Jen about this for quite some time. I live on 18th Street, just before it goes up the hill on Vista Drive, and cars go up and down that hill at ridiculous speeds, including huge trucks that are doing development. There are parents who walk their kids. There's no sidewalks. They walk their kids. There's joggers. There's people with their dogs enjoying that road as best they can. But my fear is that those cars, in particular, coming down that hill, there's going to be a problem ultimately because of that scenario. The other problem I see is on Jackson Street, there are so many trailers and big trucks parked in the right of way on the street. People have to walk around them. Again, that's dangerous for pedestrians. So I think this has a number of different issues, aspects to this, and it needs to be seriously considered.
One other thing about somebody suggested just putting a bunch of stop signs all along Jackson, and I don't really see that as a viable solution. There's only one street that qualifies that has two through streets, and that's 10th Street. So that would still leave 10th to 25th. And we can hear people screeching 3 blocks away to stop for the 18th Street stop sign, and many of them just don't even stop at all. Just go right through it. So, and it, like Carol said, we've lost animals and we've had near death experiences walking even in the grass, on the side of Jackson. And I'm not advocating for paving the entire town with sidewalks that would be over the water lines anyway, or creating, you know, that kind of infrastructure, but just more traffic calming strategies.
I'd like to see the police shift their schedules around a little bit to occasionally have someone on duty at 2 in the morning
That would
out
be
there on
amazing.
Jackson.
Yeah, and just a surprise day so nobody can predict when it's going to happen.
Yeah. Crystal?
So my question is, if this is not exactly a land use matter, so the question is whether we should be asking the city council if we can address this, or whether we need to ask them if there is a committee that they have or that they want to form that some of us could be on that would address it.
That would be
Certainly.
great. ODOT asked, they said, well, don't you have traffic engineers? Because she said in Salem we have,
Salem.
and I was like, no, we have 3 guys that are run around all day patching up burst water lines. We don't have that kind of infrastructure at our city. So I think that's a great idea to ask the city council if we can convene a committee.
Maybe have a citywide information
Yeah.
campaign, something that just to heighten this so that everybody in our community is aware of it. And those that aren't, and even those that are like stoned and
I'd like to hold this over till next time and think more about the possibilities and talk to people and
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe that's a good idea. I mean, it is the city council. I mean, we can make recommendations for health and safety, but really it's the city council that's
Right.
going to do it. But we
But
should,
I'd like to have some more, concrete research and
yeah,
before we bring it to them,
yeah,
more discussion.
it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Derelict buildings. I'm working on some ideas on derelict buildings. I want to talk to some people and see if we can get something going on that. That's kind of going to just keep working on that. The short-term rental ordinance passed. I just wanted to say that. The city council, you voted unanimously to pass it, and they added a couple things. You can pass it on to your kids. You can pass the license on to your kids if they're under the cap. Uh, we'll have a moment to. Yeah, so in a few moments you'll be able to speak. I'm sorry. Uh, that's all I really wanted to say. That was a good thing. Planning clearances, I think we're due for that next meeting.
Next meeting.
Okay.
When did the short-term rentals thing pass? Wasn't that before?
It passed at the last city council meeting.
Oh, just this month.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
So what I have isn't a final
August.
copy.
I can get that to you.
Yeah, because somebody is needing that
Okay.
about it's a land use issue where they want to develop that kind of thing. Yeah. So okay.
Question,
And
did
then
they
water
change
and wells, we want to talk about that
wells?
next. Let's put that on for next week. We do
Next
that
month.
next
I
month.
won't be here, but I do think it's a real problem. We really, right now, we have a well that was approved for a,
Who knows
a,
what?
a
Yep.
park that didn't have any, I mean, we can't have this go on. We really need to get a grasp on the impacts. We don't even know what the impacts are. And so I think it's something we really need
But
to
you
know.
know that there's a planned conversation about this.
I know there
With who?
was supposed to be a planned conversation. Yeah.
So, I guess real quick, thank you for bringing it up, Crystal. The city council does have scheduled a workshop for
Okay.
wells on, I believe the 25th.
25th.
Yes.
Let me make sure that's what the one I have also.
Oh, good. Can we send information to him?
So that's public.
5:30
That will be open to the public.
Well, workshop.
It won't be here.
5:30, the 25th.
If you can get
I
to a
won't be here
computer, it will be a go-to, same as all of our other meetings.
Oh, okay, we'll see. The 25th,
Mm-hmm.
25th.
I'll be on a bicycle,
Well, that
Thank you.
sounds
unfortunately. Yeah, I won't be able to get, oh, you never know.
Okay. Planning
comments.
matters, city planner comments?
fun. Yes, we got a grant from DLCD.
Oh, good.
We don't know the amount or anything
good.
yet. We haven't got the offer, but we know that we're on the list for an approved
Sweet.
housing planning
Thank you.
grant.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
Crystal.
A few months ago.
Yay.
Yeah.
And Joseph, yeah.
Thank you both.
He
of
was
you.
Mhm.
making it all
Oh,
get
and
in.
Joseph. Thank you, Joseph.
I have a question on the short-term rentals, just really quick, because it's unclear to me.
Yes.
So they put a cap, but didn't we say that they have a list of who can apply, right? And let's say they don't,
27 people can apply.
27, and let's say only 20 of them make it. Is that our cap?
No, the cap right now is 27. I pled the case that I said we
We
want to
made
have
that.
it be the number that are actually grandfathered in. I believe, and I will push for a vote once we find out how many actually make the
Mhm.
cut.
And that was our recommendation to this
That was our
council.
recommendation. I
Yeah.
told them that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually gave them a report to the council.
Thank you, Greg.
To expand on that, I think what happened at the meeting was they basically just set 27 for now and decided that if after all the applications come through, if it's less than 27, that they'll do a new resolution to bring the number down.
Well,
Okay.
that's good to know.
Great. Thank you.
Inside information there.
Mm-hmm.
Insider
I think that was what
information.
came up at the meeting.
Public
I don't remember that,
information.
but could be. I hope so. Planning commissioner comments. Commissioner
I
Burns.
actually have a comment slash suggestion. I heard you mention that Dropbox was giving you some issues. I recommend Box, not Dropbox, but Box. It accommodates larger files. You can share it very easily. It's, in my opinion, it's better than Dropbox.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.
Other commissioner comments? Public considerations. Please come up and speak. Say your name, where you live, and what you have to say. We have 3 minutes.
Michelle Atkins.
live on Rhodey Lane, Port Orford. And my concern is my sister was on Facebook yesterday and was, I would assume, confronting Commissioner Head about the traffic on Jackson. She did suggest that there be stop signs, additional stop signs put there. It's not true that 10th Street is the only one.
Mhm.
There is also 20th Street, 19th Street, and 18th Street that all continue on. Whether it's a block, okay, but it is still there. Those can have four-way stops. I'm sure that there's more places that they can put them if they found them. I don't think that the time and the labor that the city would put in putting speed bumps would be advantageous at all. There's a lot of trucks that do use that road and motorhomes, and that's going to cause them issues. I think that there's more that should be talked about this before it goes any farther.
Yeah.
And school's out. There's a lot of people traveling, excuse me. I talked to Oregon State Police this morning. He said he gave 2 tickets here in town for doing 60 and 70.
Wow.
That was during the day. He gave another ticket over by Battle Rock Coffee. That's when I approached him and asked him if he could talk to me. The officer that was in here a little while ago, he has things to say about this too, but he's busy now. But anyway, that's all I got to say. I think there's a lot more that can be looked into on this to fix the things on Jackson Street. I mean, like my sister said, stop signs are cheap. You can put them in on the corners. And there too, if you had an officer out there in off hours, that would be wonderful. If it's just a bunch of kids that's doing this and tearing up the streets, then they need to be stopped. And maybe some of the revenue that you guys can make from stopping these guys can go towards helping the city water problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that, to the comment?
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Now you can
Adjourned
respond
at
to her.
Yeah.
6:28.
You can't just put stop signs anywhere. That's not how it works.
You go talk to her.
They had